zu den S-Bahnen. Change here for S1 and S8 to Munich Airport and S-Bahn lines. Ausstieg links.
Hello. Today is the 20th of April 2018 and I'm here in Washington DC to do the workshop Disease as a Chance. It will start in about an hour. I'm glad to be here back in the States to do this workshop because, well, it's interesting. Symptom and diseases and what kind of messages they bring for us as human beings on this world. And there basically are three categories of messages. The factual messages, which tell us what insights we need to make better decisions in the actual situation in our lives, for example, in professional careers. And second, there are messages which indicate that our soul may be not complete, that we eventually left back part of our soul in the past. For example, in a trauma in childhood or even in previous incarnations. Thirdly, there might be messages which tell you that your clan might be not complete, that you are missing a certain person in the consciousness of your family system. Well, and in the United States of America, there are several collective trauma areas which often show up in the constellations. The first and original one is the genocide on the indigenous people. Then there is the history of slavery and the disrespect of people with African descent. And there are all those wars in the past, the Civil War, Vietnam War, Korean War, and all the other wars in between, where there were massive trauma sent out from the United States of America, but also experienced by people of the United States of America. Traumatized soldiers, for example. And so they carry a lot of heavy burdens together with their families and descendants, and they don't know it. So walking here in North America, I always feel that there is something wrong, that there's something missing, that history is not well understood here. It's not understood in other countries too, but I feel it very, as a German, we have our own history there, and we are connected and we deal with it all the time in one way or the other. And here, for example, the genocide of the indigenous people is just not very well supported and understood in the consciousness of people who live here. And if I walk around on the land here, I always see the original indigenous peoples here, and that their ancestors and the disrespect they were experiencing from the white man, really, and all the broken treaties. And I know as a constellator and also as a philosopher that those things are not unimportant, they're very important. They have their consequences still in the daily life. Well, we see what's coming up, what's coming to the surface in the workshop, and I will try to support healing movements as I always do, and look forward to that, be part of that evolving understanding of who we are as human beings and what we have to know and integrate and reconnect so that we are making a good living on this earth together. I'm sitting here near the monument to remember the Second World War, and it's really impressive for me as a German to see that, and because I really feel that American soldiers freed us from tyranny in that time, and I was not born at that time, but my ancestors had to deal with it, with the one side and the other side, of course. And well, the workshop is over since yesterday, and World War II and the consequences and some family burdens, of course, showed up there as usual. The Holocaust and the descendants of Holocausts and the descendants of the perpetrators, there are always people in those groups because, well, they are the descendants of all those times they are living. They're living also here in the United States, and not also from Germany or Central Europe, also from Russia. There was some family entanglement showing up from revolution of Russia 1917, 18, 19. And also from Australia, the genocide on the Aborigines 250 years ago showed up there, and we could, I think, very well work towards the healing movements for people who live now and try to get rid of those old trauma burdens. It really has been a wonderful workshop, also for me as a facilitator. I'm standing here now in front of the White House, and we even did a collective constellation with the United States of America in the center, and all the issues around in the space, slavery, indigenous people, different wars, and also the positions which might help to make a change and to bring the United States of America back into a better energetic shape. And there was one thing which was really interesting, and this was the imagination that there is an awakening coming, which will be all over the country in the different levels of society, and that the indigenous drums and indigenous ceremonies will trigger it and support it. What we saw then was that religious anger was going down, that the United States of America, which were very unstable in the beginning, were better off, in a better shape then, and that love and understanding was also playing a great role, and that kindness was the salt in the soup, and many other things which I and we as a group experienced, and I consider that as a contribution to a better future. Yes, and we had gun violence also as a position, which was to the end of the constellation on the ground. We had Africa as an important energy, the connection to Africa. What was really special about this workshop about Symptom-Constellations in Washington, D.C. was the deep respect which all participants had for each other.
Thank you.
And this we would like to have even worldwide between us humans and between our nations too. And what I remember about the collective constellation, there was one important position there too, and this was active ignorance. And this came down after the awakening took place, of course. But this was one of the big areas of problem to begin with. And maybe here at the White House there could be a start of wanting to know what's going on. Just wake up and see what's there. Back home in Bavaria again. On my last day in Washington, I visited the National Museum of African and American History and Culture. This reminded me on some constellations we did in the workshops for people of African descent and the history of slavery in the family system. We went back to the villages in Africa where the slave hunters captured the ancestors of the clients, and in one scene we had a female ancestor, the great-great-grandmother, and they forced her, she just gave birth to a little baby, they forced her to leave her baby back. Of course, it would have been dying, and captured her in a long row in chains to the coast to get shipped to the United States. The aggression of the slave hunters was still in the family system. It was there. The fear of them was still in the descendants of this woman. And we needed to go back to the ancestors who stayed there, the generations before that happened. And with the help of the energetic-shamanic healing method, healing voices, we could accomplish that the wisdom and the good vibes, the good energies of those ancestors could slowly proceed over generation to generation until it reached the actual client in our days in Washington, D.C. A very moving moment. So fear subsided and the kept-in aggression did too. In this respect, symptom constellations combined with healing voices can decrease fear and aggression in personal lives and in society, and create a new atmosphere, even in the collective levels in society, with less fear and more peace, and make this world a better place. Well, after this, it is already clear that I will be back in Washington, D.C. in October this year, 2018.